You're listening to The Grind. Well-caffeinated conversations with disc golfers who are passionate about improving their games and helping others to do the same. Welcome to episode 19 of The Grind, a disc golf podcast. I'm Josiah. My good buddy David is out gallivanting in Europe, and so we've got our good friend and local pro Ryan Wilking joining the show. Welcome, man.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to be here. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on. We have got a fun show lined up. Ryan's going to tell us how to make some long putts. We're going to talk about how do you make the most of your casual rounds in terms of improving as a disc golfer. We are going to review the Kastaplast Reko. But first, as always, I got to ask, and it's Ryan this time. Ryan, what are you sipping on, and how was your disc golf week?
Oh, we are sipping on a churro latte from Kiln. It's real tasty. My go-to thing there is an oat milk latte. So similar, just a little bit of kick with some cinnamon. And, we're pretty warm here in Grand Junction now, so it's strictly iced coffee for me from here on out, I think.
Yeah, I had the kids out for a round, and I think my 4-year-old forgot that summer was a thing because as soon as we got out, I was like, Dad, I'm hot. And I was like, yeah, it's only 90 right now. You got something to look forward to when we get to like 105 degree summer August days. How's your week, man?
Pretty good week. Got a couple rounds in at Watson. 4 of us got out a couple different times. Didn't score the best. One of them was an evening round where we're sneaking it in before dark, and we're kind of throwing quick shots, maybe some fun shots that I wouldn't normally throw for score, but they're cool, and we're trying new discs and stuff. We also played a morning round that was pretty great. Yeah.
So how often do you actually keep score in a casual round? If it wasn't playing with our friend group, would you keep score?
I really don't. If I started off, I'll always throw 2 off 1 and I'll count my first one, and if I get a couple birdies off the start, I may try to keep score for the round and end up with a real low one, but I'd say 99% of the time if I'm playing by myself, I'm certainly not keeping score.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel like that's typical of pros and people who've been playing for a long time, it seems. Brian Earhart, when he was at the shop, was like, you guys keep score? And I was like, well, it depends how well we're playing. The typical AM thing is like, I'm going to keep this round in U-disc. Oh, I'm going to abandon the round after 3 holes because I 3-putted on 2 and then went OB on 3. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I also got to spend some good time in the river. The river's running real high right now at Watson.
I appreciate that.
Hole 5, I've been throwing a nice little line drive gray shot up the middle, and the last 2 times I threw it, turned it over a little bit much, caught the tree, and dropped in the water. And having 2 graces out in the water made it worth it to get in, and I probably spent 45 minutes and found 25 discs and then one of my graces. So it was a good time.
Well, the other one will probably show up. Only disc golfers find those discs, thankfully. Some other discs are occasionally found by walkers and homeless people, and you don't really know if you're going to get them back. But the ones deep in the water usually will come back.
Yeah. Shout out to a local shop, Triple Play. They have an awesome return rewards policy that I feel like a lot of people participate in, and discs come back pretty frequently here.
Yeah, and when you turn in 26 discs and get $78 in store credit, that's a pretty good day. I guess you didn't turn in 26 though, because you gave one back to me. And
yeah, it was 23 at $3 a disc. I think it was like 69. I picked out 2 discs for a total of 50, and we called it good.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, I had a good week as well. I played the rounds that you played, and then I played 4 rounds at Palisade, not full rounds, but at least 12 holes every morning this week before work.
Wow, that's some impressive dedication, my friend.
Yeah. There was a couple mornings that I felt a little tired waking up at 5, but I was able to get out there and get usually like 12 holes in, and then yesterday I got in a full 18 in the morning or 19 in the morning. Kind of rushing, but I've got a tournament there tomorrow, and it's just the weather's been great in the morning. It's quiet. Nobody's out there except for dog walkers, and no, it's been nice. I Hole 1 is like a 250-foot water carry, and I think throwing that shot at 5:30 in the morning, I realized I don't quite have the power, so I need to disc up a little bit because I was throwing a hyzer with a pretty slow, overstable disc and put it in the water like 3 out of 4 mornings and was like, okay, 5:30 me is not quite ready to throw this shot. I'm going to throw something a little faster and a little less stable and just know that I'm going to get across. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the tournament. It's a pretty short layout, and they got some weird OB rules. It seems that the only OB is going to be if it lands on a sidewalk and stays on the sidewalk, or it's completely surrounded by water. So in theory, you could throw like hole 4, you could throw across the ditch into the next fairway and then play back across to the basket. So pretty odd. It's an NADGT C tier, and I think he just wants it to be fast playing. And so I think he's always run really efficient tournaments, but it seems kind of weird at Palisade to not really have much OB worry. And the sidewalks being rivers is kind of a weird thing as well, because it feels like luck. Like it's a 6-foot wide sidewalk. If you shanked your drive, then you're fine. If you you didn't commit, you're fine. But if you just happen to land on the sidewalk because you're being a little too aggressive, whatever, and it stays on the sidewalk, then you're OB. Anyway, it's kind of funny, but I think it's gonna be a fun tournament. And my game doesn't feel incredible, but my putting feels good and my upshots feel good. And I feel like in tournament, that's usually what I lean on anyway. And so I think it'll be fun. This is the first tournament this year that I haven't had a bunch of buddies with me, so I'll be a little lonely, but I'll find a way.
Right on. It's interesting hearing about that OB. It really does kind of take the teeth out of Palisade if you relax the OB on that ditch, on that front stretch especially.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that Friends tournament we played where we said, hey, if you're Ryan Wilking, you play these rules. If you're in the quote-unquote advanced category, then you have to play with OB. And if you are in the quote-unquote intermediate category, then you just play the disc where it lies. It's kind of feels like that, but it'll be fun. I wanted to kind of get a little bit of an update. You were on, I think, episode 7. I can't remember, but it's been a little while. You've had a couple tournaments that you've played in since then. Do you want to give an update on how your season's been going?
Yeah, sure. Aside from the little local playing that we do as a friend group, maybe once or twice a week, I'll do some putting, but I'm not playing a ton other than that. I have a full-time job. I'm working. I build houses. We've got a couple finishing up right now, and so it's been a lot of busy time doing that, but I have got the chance to get away for a couple tournaments. Got to play a little C tier in Olathe. Went out there, played the course blind, and ended up in second after everything was all said and done. It was a tournament I would have liked to have won and really feel like I should have. Didn't put a whole lot of focus into my round, I feel like. And there were certainly times when I just really wasn't aware of some of the OB on the course I had never played and just didn't quite make some of the right mental decisions.
Have you ever played a tournament blind before?
Yeah, probably a handful. I couldn't necessarily tell you which ones, but it's definitely happened.
Yeah, I feel like you've got the skills that obviously you will still do well probably on any course, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like whenever I play a course blind, the second round and then especially like the third round and play the course, I'm like, hey, I know what to do now. And I wouldn't have done this, or whatever. Like the fort, I played it for the third time, I guess, when John and David and I played it out in Utah. And I felt like finally I was like, I know basically what you don't want to do and what you kind of want to do on these holes. So that makes it tough, but you still came in second. That's pretty decent. Yeah,
had a really fun battle. Played with a bunch of good guys. We really do have a fun scene here in Grand Junction, and I was happy to battle with Landon and Nick. We're hoping to bring those guys on sometime soon and kind of do play what I call the game, where you just go through your round shot by shot, taking the box as necessary, and it's just a fun way for disc golfers to recap the round. I came across it just playing here in Colorado. After the tournaments, a lot of times it's everybody sitting around talking about this shot, that shot, and it kind of just never ends. Everybody's always willing to talk about some part of the round, and it's a good way to just, everybody talks about all of it, and then you move on, and you kind of don't talk about it anymore. It's a way to kind of put a cap on the day.
That's fun. I never thought about that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think David and I, and sometimes some of the other guys, will do a little bit of that. But I think having some kind of like game around it or some kind of organized way is kind of fun. You have to have a certain degree of relationship with the guy who just beat you or you just beat in order to do that, probably, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be fun to have those guys on for sure. And then 303 Open, that's Fort Collins?
Yeah, Fort Collins, 303 Open. Probably my biggest tournament of the year. It's one that I'll travel to, and it's a tournament that I really wanted to play. It was going to be a big field. A handful of guys who tour were coming in, and it was a USDGC qualifier. So really it was an opportunity for me to see where I'm at in the field of all the great Colorado players and then a few added guys. Playing disc golf is something that's been a part of my life for a long time, and I'm always needing, I guess, kind of reassurance that it's worth my time and that I'm continuing to make progress and be relevant in some way. And the 303 was a great bar for that. Got to see a lot of my friends, and being on the western slope, I have played a lot less than I used to, and so it's always good to see people and upkeep relationships. I think that's a big part of disc golf. Kind of toot David's horn of community, and that's a big part of disc golf for us. It's a cool course. It's a very, I wouldn't say it's overly demanding on any shot, but it takes a game plan and execution. Is that at a Budweiser facility? Yeah, it's at the Anheuser-Busch facility up north of Fort Collins. A beautiful little industrial park. They had the stables for the big Clydesdales on site, and it's really just a well-manicured property, and it's a great tournament. Is it fairly open, or what's it like? It's pretty open. There are some big trees that you do have to shape some shots, but it's largely a controlled distance and landing zone course. Okay. There are multiple lines to most holes. It's not a course that I would really enjoy playing casually a lot, but the added pressure of tournament and out of bounds makes it a very good course for high-level competition. Okay. How windy was it? It was 3 days, 3 rounds, is that right? 3 days, 3 rounds. First day was little to no wind, for me in the afternoon at least. That day I think there was some wind in the morning that people had to play through. I had pretty late tee times every day. The second 2 days were much windier than the first, and it was never even awful wind, especially not for the guys who had just come from glass blown. Yeah, I feel like anybody who plays in Kansas in general probably thinks that our wind is pretty mild. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely enough that you had to change discs, and what really got me was just still playing aggressive. So the first round of this tournament, I shot 9 under. My goal was to maybe be around 7. I thought I could get to 12, but was trying to be conservative and play safe. And had to play conservatively and got an eagle? It's a pretty soft par 5. Okay. They were a couple of good shots. I went skip, and then there's a OB. Like skip off the parking lot. Yeah, so it's like a skip off the road that's OB on the right, and then a stiletto skip where I threw it probably 60, 70 feet right of the pin, skipped off the road and over to get the 3 eagle. A lot of people got the 3 during the tournament. Hey, it's still an eagle. I'll take it. So you were 9 down, and that puts you in what place after the first round? You were tied 8th, I think. I was tied for 8th, and on the chase card. On the chase card, got to be filmed the second round. Oh, I didn't know that. Shout out to Ellison Productions. Ellison Productions. I'm gonna have to check it out. It was you, Chandler Fry. Who else? Oh, who else did we have? We had it was Isaac Mangrum, a cool guy from Denver area, and then Innova sponsored player. He was awesome to play with, but I'm losing his name. AJ Carey. Oh, cool. Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, he was. He had played in Kansas City or Emporia the week before, and he's making his way out to the West Coast and both him and Chandler were a treat to play with.
Yeah, that's fun. That sounds like a good card. So second and third round, you were saying you maintained that aggressiveness in the wind, and how'd it go?
Yeah, it wasn't so much that I was playing the holes aggressive, but I was playing them as I had in no wind and kind of didn't make some dish selection choices that I should have. And then just kind of lost my head a couple times. I'm interested to see when it comes out that same par 5 that I eagled the first round. I think I couldn't get up and down from like 200 feet away and ended up with a double bogey.
Ouch.
And just kind of misplayed the wind on my approaches and didn't really take the time to get set. I'm kind of interested to see the footage because it just felt rough. I don't have much recollection of it because I lost my head. Not in an angry kind of way, but just kind of an anxious, got to get off this hole kind of way.
Do you feel like did you feel pressure? You'd been filmed before because I've seen you on film with playing Macbeth. But did you feel pressure being on that chase card and being on camera?
Not really. It was more so I felt myself at times slowing down a little bit before my throws, kind of my upshots really, to make sure the camera was set. And so that's kind of an interesting dynamic. Maybe you don't have to, but I was trying to be aware.
Yeah.
I want my shots recorded. So there was one time he was having trouble with the camera on the green. And it was probably a circle's edge putt. It was a comebacker, so there's a little bit of a gallery back behind the basket. Cameraman says, "Hey, hold up," and he's fiddling with his camera. I'm kind of standing there. I check the wind, and the gallery starts to kind of move. I tell him, "No, just stay there," and he ended up getting set, and then I smash the putt, make it.
Hey, so I did not expect that to be the end of this story. So that's good.
He says he might not have actually recorded it after all. So I got iced, but made the putt anyway.
Hey, so we know if we're ever playing pickup football or something, and you're the kicker, because of course we would kick field goal, we're not going to call the timeout because there's no reason to. You have ice in your veins. It's going to be fine. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you might be just staring at me like, what is this guy? So you had like just okay rounds 2 and 3 pretty much.
Yeah, so first round was rated at 1090. Which I was stoked about. It was
1090?
Cool. Yeah. No, 1030. 1030.
I was about 1030. Okay, yeah. But still 1030 is sick.
1030 was sweet, and then the rounds 2 and 3 were 960s. So
below your average, certainly well below your potential.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the first round shows the kind of player you are, and so it's just a matter of being that player all the way through.
Yeah, it was nice to kind of shoot a real hot round and kind of know I have the skills and the tools, and then playing poorly just makes you hungry. So I think I learned a lot, and I'm very interested in just playing better golf. I think I've established that I can throw all the shots I need to throw, and now it's just down to mental game and putting.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when I watch you play, I think that it's so rare that you are playing conservatively, like playing the golf game, because you're playing casually with us. We're just all hanging out. And I feel like sometimes I wonder for myself as well as you and other, like, how do you, if you practice playing aggressively to build skills, which I think makes sense, like why lay up a 45-footer with OB behind you when you can practice running that? Do you ever actually have a hard time then dialing back to conservative because you haven't practiced that way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a mindset. I think the Olathe tournament I played kind of was a characteristic of that, where I was playing with buddies that I play with locally and never kind of dialed into a super focused tournament vibe. Somebody that I always think of is Joe Revere, Colorado legend, awesome guy to play with, awesome disc golfer, one of the most intensely focused individuals that I've ever come across. He seems to get in a zone that I just don't know that I access a whole lot. I think I'm a much more easygoing, I don't know. He just really zones in, and I appreciate and strive to mimic his ability to focus.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. I feel like I was remembering listening to something Eagle said. I think I got this secondhand while watching coverage, but Eagle said, it's always nice to come home to Colorado and get beaten by Joe again. If you don't know Joe Revere, he is an incredible player and has an incredible work ethic as well. And just a fun guy to watch play for sure. He's got all the skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I beat him the first round by a stroke. So
I was going to mention it.
Shout out to you, Joe. When I'm practicing putts in the backyard, if I'm replicating I got to make this putt, it's, beating Joe for the win.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, a lot of disc golfers in Colorado probably have done the same thing. Joe's been a staple here for a long time, and it's not slowing down at all. He won the Palisade tournament we played in at the beginning of the year by like 10 strokes or something.
It was ridiculous. It was humbling and inspiring all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if he toured, he would still be a force.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I thought maybe you could help me out here. I'd like to start making, 50% of my Circle 2 putts or better. I feel like when I watch you putt from, I'd say 40 to 55, 40 to 60, I'm like, 60% chance that's going in regardless of the conditions or the putt. You seem to have a knack for making those long putts. And I was going to kind of if you could walk me through kind of what would be your recommendations for how to start making more long putts, or at least having good runs on those long putts. And obviously styles and form is going to be different for everybody, but you could talk a little bit too about your approach to them in terms of just technique and then, mental side, aiming, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm flattered that you think I make 60% of my Circle 2 putts. I don't know that it's nearly that high.
Listen, what happens is when you watch somebody make 40 or 30% and you make 6%, then it seems like 100%. So I was actually dialing it back by saying 60%.
Okay, fair enough. I think once you have an established rhythm or an established motion for your putt, I think let's not necessarily talk about that because it's going to be different for everybody, really. There's lots of different approaches and stances, and I think making longer putts, you have to work a little bit with your heights, and sometimes it takes not necessarily aiming any higher on the basket, but understanding that the arc of your putt has to be maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit further right. And
this is right-handed because the disc fades left.
Correct, yeah. Yep. If you know that your putter's going to fade a little bit left on a longer putt, at least the way I putt, which is generally trying to be slightly a hyzer release that comes up to flat and then might be fading around the time it gets to the basket.
Okay.
I think one of the things I'm working on right now is trying to have more loft to my putt so that it's already on its way down and slowing down before it hits the chains. I think a characteristic of a bad missed putt for me is high left side.
Okay.
That I've darted it too hard. It's mostly on target, but it's hard and it's left.
And you end up with like a 30-foot comebacker.
Yeah, that'll happen. Or it just splashes out left. Like hits a lot of chains, but it's too hard, and I really need to work on dialing a bit more of a loft to it.
Yeah, you have this like very direct, slightly nose-up spin putt with some velocity on it that's really pretty to watch, but like most nose-up spin putts, when they miss everything, they're just going to keep going. So you were talking about, hey, for your putt, hey, you might need to give it some more loft, may need to put it up higher right. I think I know the answer to this, but do you still like focus and aim at the basket when you at the end of your when you're getting ready to putt, or how do you go through that mental aiming routine? Because I do think that that's something that when you're at 15 feet, you can just focus on a single link, and if you just do your shot and commit, you're probably going to make it most days.
I think the best way I could describe kind of my mental game right before putting is I pick a target, I choose the flight that's going to get it there, and then the brain shuts off and your body does what the brain just decided to do. It's almost when you're putting really well and it feels easy, it almost feels like an out-of-body kind of experience where you don't necessarily know exactly where you're aiming. You just looked at the basket, you felt the disc in your hand, and you decided how it was going to get there, and you did it.
Well, thanks, Ryan. So I just need to decide to make my long putts is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the same as if you don't want to be sick. If you feel like you're getting a cold, you just decide not to feel bad. And then
I like
keep
you
going.
so much more now. I already liked you, but I tell my wife this all the time. She's like, "Oh, are you getting sick?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "You sound sick." I'm like, "No, I'm not getting sick. I'm slightly under the weather and I'm about to recover." Like I just decide not to be sick.
It's a mindset for sure. We're kind of joking, but I do think there is power in a good attitude.
I was just recently listening to a podcast about this placebo effect and actually how they've done studies on people who know they're taking a placebo, but they took a presentation. They had a presentation before they take the placebo on the mind-body connection and how the fact that you're doing something, even if it's taking medication or a placebo, is going to influence your mind in order to influence your body and what it needs to do. And that people, even though they knew they were taking a placebo, saw significant improvement in whatever their thing was. I think it was pain, maybe for some. I can't remember the actual specific medical scenario or symptoms. But even though they knew they were taking a placebo, because they understood that they were tricking themselves, it actually had an effect. And so that there is something to this. It's not just bravado or stupidity. It's like, you can sometimes choose in life and in disc golf that by your thinking and positive thinking and that you can actually affect your body and what it does. And it seems crazy, but it's well researched.
Well, and it's interesting that I think negativity does a whole lot more bad than positivity can do good. It's a lot easier to drag yourself down with some negative self-talk. I feel like that goes downhill a whole lot quicker than the work it takes to build yourself up.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. It's like the compliment sandwich, you have to, it's like the 2-to-1 ratio is at best what it is. When I was going to mention this because I like to brag on myself, I played Palisade yesterday morning and I hit 2 55 to 60 footers, 2 holes in a row. Like bad drives or a bad upshot. And I felt really good. One was my normal, non-jump putt, kind of spinny putt. It ended up kind of high right and then fell in the chains. And the other one had a low ceiling, so I stole David's step putt that he's been working on and just smashed the chains, line drive the whole way, a little bit nose up. And I was so stoked. I was like, it's perfect timing. We're talking about making long putts, and I made my first 2 60-footers in the last, probably month or something, or at least, I don't know. It feels like a month.
Were they back-to-back or just in the same round?
2 holes back-to-back.
Oh, that's so awesome. I was trying to explain to my wife the other day just that the feeling of making a long putt is one of the best feelings ever.
It's awesome, especially when you are in that kind of zone where you didn't know what you were trying to do, so to speak. You just committed. You picked your target. You knew, and you let your body do it. I feel like sometimes when you overthink it and it still goes in, you meant to hit this line, you didn't, and it went in. You kind of cheat yourself with the fun because you're kind of like, oh, well, that was lucky. Where if you just are kind of mindlessly doing it, focused, but not mechanically doing it, I don't know, it just feels even more fun to me.
Yeah, I mean, what's your percentage of picking up your driver and tossing it in the basket after missing a putt?
Oh, it's high, but not nearly as high as David's flat top Firebird putts, because those are in the 98th percentile right now. I don't normally putt the driver. I probably should, but I don't want to tell myself, oh, you should be putting a driver because it's more reliable than your putter. I try not to do that to my putter. Going back to kind of making longer putts, I thought one thing, so we talked about, hey, aim high, right? I think a lot of it too early on is just giving yourself credit for putting it high enough and right enough or left enough, whatever it is for you, to give it a chance, and taking that as, hey, I gave it a chance. and that's worth something, especially when you're first learning to I don't know, try the long putts. I think ending up hitting the pole when you went for the putt is so typical. Like, I think for me, a lot of times good layup is what I end up with when I'm going for the putt. And I've just kind of given up on worrying about it, but I do think there's a certain degree, hey, I gave it a chance, and that's, yeah, it didn't go in. Maybe it didn't even hit the basket, but it was closer than my last one, and being okay with that being the first step in getting better at making those long putts. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think trying to make them is a great first step, and even maybe developing a putt that's slightly different from your normal putt that might be floatier and kind of try to drop in a little bit more is a good way to start running them.
Do you find yourself, like, I think this could be obviously very specific to your putt, but I think that there is some principles that should apply to most putts. I find sometimes that if I try to use entirely my arm to improve the velocity, height, spin of my putt to get the distance, I don't see good results. Do you find that you end up using your legs a bit more, or do you even have this thought of what you need to do to get to the basket from that, whatever that is? For some people that may be 30 feet. For you, when you're like pushing a putt, probably like at 70 you start. What's that range when the putt starts to get out of going for it range in terms of just your ability to spin it there with your normal putt?
Probably somewhere in that 70-foot range, I suppose.
So when you get to that range, for you, where you're kind of getting to the edge of what's comfortable, do you think about how you're getting power, or does that even come across your brain? Because obviously a lot of people will do a big jump or a big step or something to really try to get that forward momentum. What do you do?
I think oftentimes if it's something I'm trying to make, I'll actually switch to a little floaty sidearm. I played a lot of Ultimate before ever playing disc golf, and so just a little slightly Annie flick with the P2 can be a good way for me to run a longer putt. Or it's just kind of not a step putt, but a step through putt.
So one thing, if you really wanted to make a lot of floaty little Annie putts, I have a recommendation for you.
Does it start with a B?
Yeah, well, kind of. A Kastaplast Berg. So we'll give you the B. But yes, it's a beautiful disc. It just wants to go in the basket on a slight Annie from the forehand. And it doesn't fade out on you. It doesn't turn over, and it doesn't fade out. It's a beautiful disc. I've been trying to convince you to put it in your bag for a while. I will continue. The Kastaplast Berg is the greatest short flick touch putter in the world.
You guys have been making them look real good. You throw it. I think both John and David now bag them.
And they throw it probably better than me already on the little Annie flick, and I feel like my preaching maybe have made like being the pastor of the Church of the Berg, I think I've been too successful in it. If you got it, you'd probably be like 80% from C2 instead of just your current 60% in my mind. So I think that's helpful. I think when you were saying that feeling of making a long putt, if you just lay out like a really tough drive, probably really obstructed, maybe one of the tougher holes through trees, and you're puring a drive, or that like 60-footer putt, which one feels better, the pure drive or the long putt, assuming the same like percentages of difficulty?
I think the putt for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Partially because it's the hole's over.
Yeah. I mean, the hole's over. There's the relief. Hopefully you've scored well, so you have some kind of end result for your effort. And then there's the walking to the basket, retrieve your disc. People are probably saying good putt or, nice birdie, whatever. The putt, I think, there's more weight to it.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I do like when you park a hole so well on your drive that you're the last person to putt out, even if you're taking like a stroke or two from the competition. That one feels good too. But I agree. I think the long putt, I think I lean towards that. They both feel great though. one thing that I noticed about you is I think you have limited time in life and you spend limited time on the disc golf course, but you seem to try to make the most of your casual rounds in terms of improving. I just thought maybe you could give some, things that you do or things that you'd recommend in terms of, if you play an 18-hole course and throw 18 drives and putt, 27 times or whatever that is, maybe that's a good score. I don't know. 2053. I don't know. Maybe you putt 36 times. I don't know. But what are some things that you do in a casual round to work on your game beyond just this hole requires this shot. I've thrown it 6 times this week and I'm going to do it again. What do you do?
I think number one reason for me playing disc golf is spend time with buddies. At this point in my disc golf career, yes, I want to play pro tournaments and compete and be competitive, but it's building relationships and having guys in my life that can hold me accountable and be friends. To practice so that I am well prepared for these tournaments, because if I'm going to spend the money to go to Fort Collins or Fort Morgan for the High Plains Challenge, by the time I take a couple days off of work and drive there and maybe stay in a hotel, we're talking about $600, maybe $1,000 to go do this. And if I play poorly, that feels really bad, and it's a long drive home. So I also don't want to be too lackadaisical in my disc golf game, and I want to put in the work to get the results that I want. I would like to be a casually 10-20 rated golfer that plays a couple tournaments a year. I'm 980 right now, so there's a long way to go, and I need more consistency when it comes to tournament rounds. But that's my goal. I'd like to be a local pro for a long time, but no longer in my life is it disc golf over everything. I have my wife. We have a home together. There's people in my life that require relationship, and disc golf fits in on the side, and I'm just stoked that it gets to work out for me. But there's also some intentionality that has to go into it that I do need to play well to make it worth it. What I need is to be confident in my discs and what they do. So your question was, what do I do on a short casual practice round to make it worth it? How do I get better? And it's getting used to the discs, really. My favorite thing to do is I will buy 3 of a disc that I know I'm really committed to. Right now, I just picked up 3 new Getaways. It's my main fairway driver. I got 3 matching blank white ones, and I just go and throw those 3 discs. Well, I only use 2 at first. I'm keeping the third one out to put a sweet die on it.
Oh, there you go. I mean, when it's a white disc, you have to, right? A blank white disc.
My wife made a cool lion print that we're going to try to get done up on a disc. She's a pretty amazing artist. So.
Okay. This is actually perfect for a later segment. You won't know now, but you'll understand later.
Okay, I'll file that away.
All right, so you got 2 or 3 of the same disc, and then you just try to throw the same lines, or what are you talking? Where are you going with that?
Yeah, throw the same lines and just really get to know that disc. And it'll probably be where I'll pick 2 discs. Lately, it's been the Getaway and the Tactic, the Razor Claw 2 specifically, and I'll just throw those discs and try to get them to do what that hole requires. It might not be a hole that typically I would throw that mold on, but I think it's still good to do because it teaches you how to manipulate them and tells me what they'll do in certain situations.
This makes total sense to me, and I thought maybe you were just a little bit crazy with some of your disc selections, but you're learning the disc. I honestly sometimes was like, I guess it's a getaway day for Ryan, but I don't really understand why he threw a getaway on this hole when he could easily reach it with a method or whatever. That makes total sense. I think I probably knew somewhat that it was, but it makes total sense. And so you end up picking a couple discs, and those are your main discs you're going to throw in that round, and you're going to try them on all the lines, on all the shots, and make them work for the hole.
Yeah, it's a way to practice and also to beat them in. You buy a new disc, and as you wear off the flashing, maybe they become a little less stable. And I'm not playing a ton of rounds during the week, so I have a tournament in a couple weeks. I want to get these discs kind of nicely beat in and know how they're flying and trust them. And choosing just a few of them to do at a time helps I'm throwing them every hole.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think that one of the things amateurs struggle with is we want to throw lots of cool plastic, and we sometimes have molds in our bag that we have an idea of what it's for. Like, hey, I really need an overstable fairway, or I really need this disc, but it doesn't end up getting thrown that often. Like for me, the Buzz hasn't been thrown that often recently, and that's because the gap between what I can get to an MV2 and what I get a Crave to, if there's not a low ceiling, is pretty minor. And so that disc just doesn't get thrown because it doesn't make the most sense for the holes I'm playing. But I like the idea, and I may try it, not obviously at the tournament tomorrow, but because I think it's a great idea to really feel confident in your bag as you rotate through the disc, where you say, hey, I can put this disc on. I know what this disc does on every line, where a lot of my discs, I know what they do on like 2 lines. Like a less stable disc, I know what it does like hyzer flip, and I know what it does Annie. Like a really stable disc, I know what it does flex, and I know what it does on a hyzer. But the idea of like, oh, I'm going to throw this disc even though it's too fast for this hole, or isn't going to fade enough, or I noticed you throwing the Essence into a headwind when you were getting used to those. And I was kind of like, it's cool that you can do that, but it seems like not the most reliable disc, but you were learning the discs and what they could do. That makes total sense. I really like that. I think that's going to be helpful to me and hopefully to our listeners as well. You also seem to find ways to add holes to a course if there's not anybody in your way, or maybe occasionally when some of us are walking to the hole. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I do think you do a good job also. Like some of our courses just don't allow you to throw a full power shot sometimes. And I notice you'll be 100 feet behind the tee pad and you'll be throwing.
Yeah, I try to squeeze in some extra throws when I can. When you're playing with a group of guys, you don't want to be that guy who's always throwing 3 shots and everybody's waiting on you. But with my limited time out on the course, I do like throwing extra shots, and I'll try to throw lines that aren't even necessarily a part of the course. Like you said, I'll go back 100 feet or something just so the distance, a lot of the holes at Watson specifically, I don't even touch a driver there most of the time.
Yeah, but unless you were practicing with a driver, when you can get a method out to like low 4s easy without much effort?
Not so much maybe high 3s with a method.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Still, like when all the holes are 360 feet or less, and you can get well past 360 feet with a mid-range, then it makes sense you don't get to use your drivers that much.
Well, and fun in the bag update, the method is kind of on the bench for the moment, and I'm putting the compass back in the bag.
Okay, so the compass, when you were sponsored by Lat, was that your main mid? Or your main like
one of them, yeah.
Mid?
It was a really good mix of it went Fuse, Compass, Verdict.
Okay,
and I kind of replaced that with just the method in different plastics and wear.
So, what made you put the compass back in your bag?
I really like the flight of a beat-in method where it has a little bit of glide to it. And I'm not playing enough that I can have a bunch of those beat in. I lost the couple that I had, and then a fresh Exo Hard method is pretty overstable and not necessarily fun to throw.
You lost both of your beat up methods like the day before a tournament, right?
Yeah, it was a rough time. I lost my 2 beat up methods, a Fuse, and a Justice. I was practicing night before the tournament, lost the disc. It was rough.
Yeah.
So what I really enjoy is my Fuse and the compass. And so a very beat-in flippy method was starting to take over some of the shots that I would throw the Fuse for. And so I was throwing the Fuse less. And then I lost that method, and so I'm going back to the Fuse a little bit more. And for just a regular straight shot to complement the Fuse, I kind of feel like I might prefer the compass rather than the method.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think sometimes, well, let's do this because we'll be running long if we let's either second cup next week. Ryan's going to be back on the show next week, or main show. I want to talk about replacing discs in your bag and planning your bag for that. You and I started a conversation about this the other day when I lost my favorite disc, but I think it'd be a fun conversation to have. Just kind of getting back to, to sum up, if you want to improve while playing casual rounds, I like the idea of planning your round in terms of discs that you want to learn how they fly, and then getting extra shots in when you can, when you're not obstructing other people's play or hitting people with discs. So I think that's helpful. You want to get into a disc review?
Heck yeah, let's do it.
This week's review is sponsored by 1010 Discs. Big thanks to 1010. They sent us a couple Kastaplast Rekos to check out. They are a 3-speed, 3-glide, 0-turn, and 1-fade putter from Kastaplast. We got the K3 and K1 plastics to check out. Ryan, what'd you think? You're a big putter thrower.
Yeah, I actually really liked it. I had the K1 for most of the week. They're premium plastic. It was kind of gummy, but still stiff, had a little bit of give to it. I would kind of describe the feel of the disc as kind of a lower profile judge.
I could see that.
With a smaller bead.
Yeah.
Felt really comfortable in the hand, and I liked throwing it. It didn't feel overly glidey to me. I think the distance I did get from it felt due to the speed.
Yeah, did seem a little bit faster than maybe a judge would be. I don't know.
But very high speed and low speed stable. I really wasn't flipping this thing up at all. It was holding some pretty strong hyzers for me.
Yeah, I wonder, you threw mostly the K1 and then had the K3 after. I had the K3 first and then the K1. And I felt like the K3 felt like a little bit more glidey maybe to me. Part of it maybe that it had a little bit less high-speed stability, so it flipped up a tiny bit more. But yeah, I liked it. I agree. I like the feel of it. That rounded nose and then the micro bead, I feel like, in the medium depth, like it is more shallow than a judge, but it's not, I don't know, I don't think it's overly shallow. It felt really good in the hand, especially for throws.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. When I got the K3 plastic, I was really impressed with that, kind of a rubbery feeling, but still stiff plastic. I feel like it would make a great thrower to just kind of slowly beat into something that would flip and turn, and the kind of rubbery plastic would make me feel good about landing on hard pan or slopes of any kind. Seems like a really cool, straight flying, controllable disc. I haven't done any putting with it necessarily.
I putted with it a little bit, and I think, I think there's a certain degree to which putting feels like so much about feel and confidence and less about the disc you're putting with. But I liked it. It felt a little bit glidier than my Wizards, but my Wizards, I think you've putted with them. They are like very neutral and pretty low glide to me. So whenever I putt with any other disc that's pretty fast, like this one is, and got a little bit of glide to it, I sometimes end up missing high, but it could be feel and confidence as well. I liked it as well. I felt like the K3 I definitely like the flight of the K3 more than the K1 to me, as well as the feel. I felt like part of it is I played with the K1 in the heat, and so it still was stiff enough not to feel like it was flimsy, but I wish it was a little bit more stiff in the 90-degree weather. Now, if I had just played with it in 50 or 60 degrees, I think I would have enjoyed it. I like K1 plastic, but that K3 plastic is probably my favorite base plastic. I don't know. You say it's rubbery, and it is, but I think normally when you think about a rubbery disc, you think it's going to be flimsy or not give you that confidence, and it is. It's got nice stiffness in the rim, like you were saying. I'm a big fan. I was afraid of the Reko, and it's one of the reasons I had never tried it before. I had heard good things.
What do you mean you were afraid of it?
I was afraid I would like it too much. I had been told like a Wizard, but with a little bit more glide, a little smaller bead, a little shallower. And when I held it in my hand, I was like, oh, this feels great. Like I could see myself easily putting with it or throwing it in the bag. No problem. It's actually probably a mercy. Well, that 1010 sent us discs that don't fit my bag's very, very strict color scheme, but we'll get into that with the rating. Yeah, I liked it. I threw some nice hyzers with it that I felt like it held the hyzer nicely the whole way. It didn't want to flip up and too much, and I felt like it felt very controllable on that shot. I threw a lot of straight shots with it. I don't know. I liked it. It just seemed intuitive. It just seemed point and shoot, straightforward. I don't think you could say too many things about it besides that it felt good and it flew well.
Do you know what other plastics Kastaplast has it in? Is there other baseline options?
So they just recently dropped a K3 hard, which would be like a stiffer version of that. And then they have a K1 soft, which used to be K2, which is their like kind of floppier, gummier premium plastic. But this one I really liked in the K3.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit as well. This has made me rethink my mold minimalism when it comes to a putter. Right now I'm just bagging the P2 and a Keystone.
Yep.
So the P2 is my main putting putter, and I'll throw it as well. And I do like the way it flies. My only shtick about the P2 is, and it's something I like, on my forehands, it's a really nice deep rim that kind of mimics an ultimate disc. I do find some release issues with the P2 on a backhand.
Okay, interesting.
So the idea of this shallower, slightly beaded putter for throwing is somewhat appealing.
Yeah. Well, as you know, part of the deal is you can put it in your bag if you want. That is part of the deal. By the way, you play Fort Morgan in 2 weeks? A week and a half?
Yeah.
What's the date of that?
June 16th, 17th, 18th, that
range.
range.
A little bit of time. So you have time to work it in, man. You have time to practice with it.
Hey, now, I'm practicing for a tournament. No time to be tweaking with the bag or adding new discs. It's P2, ride or die until it's not.
Hey, that works. And there's a pro tip for you. Don't totally shake up your bag right before a tournament if you can avoid it. You want to get into a rating?
Yeah.
So our rating system, Ryan and I will each give it a score, 1 to 5. We'll sum our scores to 10. 1 is, it's just not that great of a disc. 2 is, it's an okay disc, but there's better options out there. 3 is, it's a good disc, but it doesn't stand out. 4 is, it's fantastic, but it's not going in my bag. And 5 is, it's going in the bag. So Ryan, I guess you're probably not going to give it a 5 yet, but what's your rating?
Yeah, I can't give it a 5, but I really liked it. I'll give it a 4. It's my first experience with anything Kastaplast has put out. I liked the plastic. The disc flew in a way that would suit my putter game, and I'd be keen to try a couple different plastics and see if I can work it in. Do they make a glow? This would be a great putter for glow.
Make incredible glow.
Okay, that might have to go on the wish list.
Yeah, no, K1 glow is, until MVP came out with their most recent glow, it was so far beyond anything else on the market. It was like, it's kind of blinding still. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4, but to be continued, because I've got a tournament coming up, and so it's hard to commit to even wrapping your mind around adding a disc to your bag. I think it would have to take the Envy's place, and I think the main reason I would do it is because I think it's a little slower and less stable than a Envy out of the right out of the box. And my favorite Envies are my most beat-in Envies, and the fresh premium Envies don't get a ton of play. I beat up a Electron Soft Envy until it's not really an Envy anymore, and that becomes my main throwing putter, and then I try to add to that. And I like that in some ways, the layering, but we were just talking about it, and we'll talk about it next week at some point. You know, when you lose that one, then you don't really have an off-the-shelf replacement. And I kind of like the idea of that K3, which is just really neutral and straight out of the box. It doesn't have a lot of fade. And then that K1, like you were saying, doesn't really flip up. It's nice and stable, high speed, low speed. It's tempting. But we got a tournament coming up, and ride or die Envies until to be continued. But big thanks to 1010 for sending these in. That's a 8 out of 10, so heck of a score, heck of a disc. Kastaplast has a good one there. You should definitely check one out. If you want to order one from 1010, you can use the code THEGRIND5 to get 5% off your order. That is THEGRIND 5 at 1010disc.com. They've got free shipping over $60 and just $3.50 flat rate shipping. Great prices and great pictures. So go check them out and use the code TheGrind5 to let them know we sent you. That's the majority of the episode, Ryan. But got to ask you, if you had to fight a lion with one mold, one disc, out of all the discs that you've handled or thrown, what would it be?
I mean, it's got to be the stiletto. Wide rim, overstable, the name to boot.
Yeah.
Probably be stiletto.
I like that. When you said, "Hey, we're dying a lion" on the on the disc earlier, I was like, "This is perfect."
Nice.
I'm going to go with the Kastaplast Rask, which you've thrown before. It's got two rims, and my theory is it's kind of like a barbed arrow at that point. You know, it's got the outer rim and the inner rim. I feel like it may add a certain degree of, intensity to it. But I think the other one I was thinking about was the Discmania Tilt, because at least the ones I've felt are like super stiff, and they've got a very, very distinct rim to top plate transition. But I'm going to go with the Rask. And I honestly hope I never have to fight a lion with a disc. But if I did, I hope I'm back in the Rask that day. Well, that's the episode this week. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to catch the second cup and hear Ryan talk about 5 things that AMs do that keep them from throwing smooth and far, you can join this week at patreon.com/thegrindeg. And as always, whether it's coffee or disc golf, don't forget to enjoy the grind.